For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
Hey, welcome back to Dunkin' Donuts. And actually, we'd like to introduce to you in Dunkin' Donuts for the first time ever, Jasper Oorthuys, the boss and the editor-in-chief of...
Main man.
What?
The main man.
The main man.
Big honcho.
And boss and editor-in-chief. Yep. Head honcho, indeed, of Karwansaray Publishers, who coincidentally publish Wargame, Soldiers and Strategy magazine, among other awesome historical
A fine
titles.
publication if there ever was one.
Indeed. Jasper, welcome for the first time ever to a Dunkin' Donuts.
Thank you. I love the atmosphere.
Ooh, try these pumpkin muffins. They're delicious. They're to die for. I'm telling you. Oh, yes.
Any caffeine-infused muffins?
Well, the sugar, you'll bring it right up there.
Yeah.
And just have a big giant coffee. That'll get you all the caffeine. Do you, where are you as we speak, Jasper, for real?
I'm in Zutphen, the Netherlands.
Ooh,
The Netherlands. And do they have lots of pumpkin-flavored things in the Netherlands is what I'm wondering?
Pumpkin-flavored stuff is not really a thing here.
That's more of an American thing.
But it's American, actually. And she, every year, sort of fall time, she gets a couple of cans of mashed pumpkin, I guess, from her mom.
Did she make a pie?
Yeah.
There you go. That's good stuff. Pumpkin pie.
Flavored things is not a thing.
You have.
Who asked?
I love it. I hate pumpkin, to be completely honest with you. I
just assume it's all tulips and wooden shoes. Am I wrong?
And windmills.
Windmills, right.
And little boys sticking their fingers in holes in walls.
Right.
Dykes, you mean, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know.
It's happily used by the National Marketing Agency.
Well,
anyway.
You know, you're beating Belgium because they have a little boy that pees on things, so you're way ahead.
That is
way ahead in the childhood use of children for marketing and tourism.
Oh, let's not go there, but no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's moving on. Okay, Dunkin' Donuts is great. So anyway, in this current era of everybody and their brother is setting up a little web magazine for this, that, and the other thing, we figured since we had Jasper with us, it would be a very interesting conversation to talk about how you start up an actual hold it in your hands hard copy magazine and all the different decisions and choices that you have as you're going through that developmental process and how you do it. So, Jasper, go ahead and talk. Just kidding. Okay,
no
first of all, Jasper, tell us a little bit about how you got into this and how long you've been doing it and where you come from. What is the Jasper Oorthuys origin story?
36, I studied history at Nijmegen University, and like many history students, I got out of university and was like, okay, what now? So I got a dumb job, and a friend of mine worked at a publishing company, and at one point there was an opening, and I got an interview, and ta-da! I got a job at a publishing company, and I wrote about what was it? Yeah, magazine was called Business and Meetings.
Well, that sounds fun.
Oh, exciting!
Yeah. Well, it was all about conferences and Congress and exhibitions, and I got to see a lot of fancy hotels and exhibition rooms, mostly empty.
Wow!
It was very useful to learn how to make a magazine because I started out as an editor and ended as chief editor of the business magazines there. So by then I knew quite a bit about how to make a magazine, and then I worked at Nijmegen University again for a while, and I got to work in the end for what is best described as somebody with a lot of money. And he had still has a lot of interest in all kinds of history, and he wanted to start various projects, and I started working for him, but he was too busy doing other things, so I got paid initially just a day in the week, I think, while I still worked at university, and I didn't really do anything for him. He didn't seem to mind, but after a while I started to feel a little bit guilty. So I was, at the time, still am the webmaster at RomanArmy.com and Roman Army Talk, the forum.
Oh, cool.
And there's just a lot of people there who are interested in, the ancient Roman army. And we talked about the idea of having a magazine about that topic some time, because it didn't exist. And I proposed that to him, and he said yes. Oh, wow. So he said yes about 6 years ago. And in 2007, we started with Ancient Warfare, and that's how it all began.
Nice. So you find an angel investor and start a magazine.
Yeah, that's the
awesome.
summary.
That's great. So and now so you said 7 years ago you started Ancient Warfare. How many magazines do you guys handle now?
3. Yeah. It all went, Ancient Warfare started out as a little itty-bitty magazine. It's still comparatively itty-bitty, but it grew quite a lot. And in 2010, the then Spanish publishers of Wargame, Soldiers, and Strategy, they put out the message, said, we're stopping with the English edition of Wargame, Soldiers, and Strategy. And I got into contact with Guy Bowers, who was at the time, and still is, the editor of the magazine, said, okay, what's up? What are they doing with it? Are they just, is it just temporary or is it permanent? What are they going to do? And he didn't know really. And we got to talk to the Spanish publishers. And I talked to my boss and said we should go and talk to them, and that'd be interesting, because on the day after of course, it doesn't mean anything to Americans, but the day after the World Championships,
that's a sport where you kick a ball around, right?
Soccer final.
Soccer.
There we go.
I think you mean soccer.
Got it.
Yeah,
soccer.
Sorry. The World Championship here, it means soccer, nothing else.
Okay. Just check.
South Africa 2010, the day after the final between Spain and Holland.
Oh.
We were in Madrid to talk to the Spanish publishers, and that was very interesting because we got a lot of smoke and mirrors at first. And my boss is not the type to get fazed by such things. So at one point they were like, "No, we just stopped. We just want to reevaluate the magazine," and we were pretty sure that was just not true at all. And then they were like, but if you want to buy this magazine, how much would you be willing to offer? And my boss, I don't know. And the Spanish were like, so why did you come here? And he just said, I don't know, we just wanted to see what you looked like.
Nice.
And then we went back home, really. And we kept talking a little bit, and then 6 months later, we suddenly had a contract that we had bought WSS.
Wow, nice.
Wow, very nice. Now, to go back to a little bit, the first magazine.
Yeah.
Walk us through some. So you convinced your boss that it would be a good idea to transfer that sort of outreach into a magazine. What are some of the steps that you have to go through to take it from you had the online presence and then you wanted to make it an actual magazine? Like so I'm guessing since you were the guy on the ground floor, were you in charge of all those choices that had to be made?
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. I was chief coffee maker and chief editor at everything in between. Gosh, how does it? It's
like I'm assuming from when you were doing the website and you had all the contacts there, were the writers sort of? Did you have a bunch of writers that you kind of contributors that you already had in online? Like you had the content, you just needed to translate it into a hard copy, or was it sort of you needed a whole new series or a whole new element of content to try to flesh out a magazine, I guess?
Yeah, it's the latter, definitely.
Yeah.
Roman Army Talk still is mostly a forum, and getting people in a forum to write something
Coherent.
not always a problem, but longer than 250 words is sometimes a problem.
Uh-huh.
But I also, I forgot to tell you, I also, as having worked at university in ancient history, I knew people from there, and I actually worked on founding a academic journal about warfare in the ancient world, and that never panned out. But I did have some context through there, and really, I found that if once you put the word out on at this time still RomanArmy.com had 2,500 members, and if you type, I don't know if it's still the case, but if you typed in Roman Army on Google, it was like the second hit. So we were pretty up there. And once you start to put out the word that we're going to start this, and there were already a couple of professional writers on the forum who said, "Hey, I'll be happy to help you with the first article, or the first two." Then people just come. There's a lot of people who are just, if you find a topic that people are really interested in, passionate about, there's a lot of people in the end who are going to be willing to write, especially if you're willing to pay them a little bit for their effort.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's really interesting. So that's how you got started and everything. Now, so you were involved with, business magazines, and now obviously you've been involved for a long time with historical gaming related magazines, or historical magazines in general. What are some of the, I guess, common challenges to publishing a magazine that folks who aren't in the biz wouldn't really know? Like, what are the common things that people outside of just have no clue how much effort it takes to do?
Having been on the inside, it's hard to say.
Well, what are some of the big challenges in general? Just what are the things that you're
each month or every 2 months? What are the things that are real bugaboos to you?
It's kind of boring, probably, but the biggest bugaboo is really that it costs a bloody lot of money to publish a magazine, and you have to find enough people who want to buy the damn thing every other month, to make up for the cost. It's kind of boring, probably.
No, I think that's very, like, where are your biggest costs?
Printing.
Is it the printing? And
printing it gets into a lot of zeros very quickly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would say that printing is probably 2/3. Layout is going to cost money if you want to make it look pretty decent. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things people don't understand is a lot of people have legal or not versions of, say, InDesign or Quark or Photoshop. And they have all the software. Having it is one thing. Knowing how to use it properly and actually making it look like it should. It's that's still something you need to know how to do. And people who know how to do it want to have money for helping you with something.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned layout, because I think that's one of the things that has always impressed me with your guys' publications is how just great they look and how professional they look. And so I think it's clear that a lot of the other magazines, just don't have that level of. So I think it's good to know that's just not something you just slap together. It takes a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of money to get it all in there, right?
It takes a lot of thought, I think, and you have to be lucky to have some people who have I guess taste is the best word.
Yeah.
You have to have people who know what looks good. Mm-hmm. And you have to be willing to try. I think when we were thinking about restarting WSS, what we did was just buy basically every gaming magazine in sight, and then go to the magazine store, and just look at magazines. Look at there's thousands of magazines about just as many topics, although most seem to be about women and
Right.
From one direction or the other.
Yeah. You just grab a lot of magazines and look at them, see how they're laid out. See, you have to really try and if you're starting a magazine, you really that's the easiest and fun part too. Is just look at all the other magazines and what do they do and what don't they do. You look at a magazine and go, oh, that's a cool idea. I wish I'd thought of that. But if somebody else has done it first in a completely different niche, then there's no reason you couldn't do it in yours. In other words, steal good ideas.
Right.
And you get ideas and you try to develop. Okay, what do I want my magazine to be? It's easy to say my magazine needs to be about X. Starting a magazine is a romantic idea in a way for a lot of people, just like publishing a book. I'm so interested in this topic. I wish I could do a magazine about it, and then okay, I'll just begin. The thing is, the biggest thing I think what you need to think about is to develop your magazine in such a way that you can make one every other month or every week or however often you want to do it, that is sufficiently different and sufficiently the same so that people recognize it and people feel like it connects to them and it feels familiar, but it's interesting and new every time, and you have to be able to do that and keep going for years and years on end, hopefully, provided that enough people are buying the thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I haven't really thought about it that way before, but you're right. Having to come up with keeping it different is interesting. I really thought about that, but you want to keep it feeling the same, but fresh and alive. And that kind of brings me to my next question in the same vein. So those are sort of the general challenges of magazine publishing overall for anybody publishing a magazine about anything, right? What are some of when you got into the specifically into publishing magazines for gamers or for historical buffs, what were some of the unique challenges there that are really unique to that market segment?
Well, you have to.
Or is it just it's a really small market, so that's hard as hell? Is that part of it?
That doesn't help.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what part of that. What I just mentioned about we just bought all the other magazines that are already out there, and there's quite a few for historical wargaming. Mm-hmm. Quite a few. I mean, if you think about it, there's miniature war games, there's War Games Illustrated, there's War Game Soldiers and Strategy, there's battle games, and there's quite a few society magazines. There are some are done pretty well, and some are not so much. But there's quite a bit of paper being printed full of historical wargamer content every month. So the big challenge there is to find, your angle that is, again, sufficiently different enough, but sufficiently recognizable that it's, people want to go, that's the one I want.
Right.
And the way we found that really was by looking at all these other magazines and try to describe, okay, what is their thing? You would figure out, if you'd get a random article, which of the magazines would it go in? Would it be, obviously, people go, oh, Flames of War, you have to go to War Games Illustrated, or old school wargaming, you have to go to Battle Games. But that's not just it. You have to it's just finding your unique selling points.
Right. What makes you unique. All right, and again, in a smaller industry, that must be very, very hard. One of the things I've always found interesting is the amount of, and I'm curious if technology has made this, shorten this up or not, but a lot of people forget that there's a pretty long, or at least there used to be a pretty long lead time for magazine publications, right? And I think it used to be around 2 to 3 months. Is that still the case? Like, what is your average lead time for your magazines from, how many months out are you working on the next issue?
Well, we try to work ahead as far as possible because it just makes life easier. Right. But if you have a last minute thing that you just have to, if you said, okay, there's a new D6 generation is going to publish a vidcast from now on about historical wargaming. Just saying. You wanted to get that in. That's you could do that pretty much at the last minute, and then because digital layout has made laying out a magazine so much easier. It's just you create a high resolution PDF, you send it to the printer. 2 weeks later, you got your magazine.
Oh wow.
Well, it depends a little bit. You could have it. It depends on how much you want to pay for printing, really. But you could have it between a week and 3 weeks, or you send it to China, and then it might take a really long time. But it can be pretty short if you really want to. But then that's just a good way to stress yourself out, of course. So planning is preferable.
So how far out? For instance, how far out in advance? Do you how many months in advance do you know the themes basically for your upcoming issues?
We try at least 6 months.
Oh, very nice. So you've got like a half a year. So you've half a year of the themes at least, so you can now start slotting in different things that you've got as you collect them.
Yeah, somewhere. It depends a little bit, but you usually try to once or twice a year. You have sort of a real brainstorm session about what could be a good theme, and then you just slot them in. Yeah, you just say, okay, issue 70 going to be that theme, issue 71 that theme, 72, and then Guy is really the guy. Guy is the guy with the contacts, so he might say, oh, that guy is really interested in that topic. I'll ask him to do that guy is really more for that. We'll see about that. That guy is more interested in that. You start to sort of initially assign some names, people to ask. Big problem, of course, is getting the miniatures for every issue. So we might say, well, this is going to be a problematic theme, but it happens to be a period or something we wanted to do with something with anyway. So maybe we'll decide that some of us are going to start painting some figures, so that by the time we get to the theme, we know we can get at least some figures photographed close up, and we'll have that, and we'll arrange some photos elsewhere because that guy has a huge collection.
I wanted to ask that because I think that's one of the most impressive things about your magazines are the amazing photos and the amazing sets of miniatures that match so perfectly to the theme. So I was curious. So that's not, you do a lot of all that stuff's in-house. That's a lot of your own local collections, or do you find someone online or someone who happens to have that collection, lots of great photos, or is it some combination of that, or how do you guys work that stuff?
I mean, yes, it's fun to paint miniatures, but it's not really fun if you have to paint a certain set of miniatures before a deadline because you don't have anything else. I mean, ideally, we go to somebody who has a great collection of a certain period with certain miniatures, and Guy just goes, takes all his photo equipment, and takes a lot of photos one day. Or we go to wargaming shows, take a lot of photos, go around the tables, check them out, see what's there, and just try and build up a stock. But yeah, sort of for either emergencies or we know that somebody has a good-looking collection on the table for big battles, but if you take close-ups of his miniatures, which of course you want to do in a magazine like this, at least sometime, they wouldn't look that good. So then you go, okay, well, we need a couple of Napoleonic French. Okay, we'll just buy a pack, and we just happen to have a couple of people work with us who paint pretty well. So they'll just paint some up, and then we'll photograph them separately.
Oh, neat. That's cool. I didn't know that's how you guys work that. You'd mentioned earlier that a lot of folks, kind of dream of running their own magazine. But I also think a lot of people dream of having an article published in a magazine someplace, right? I mean, everybody's like, I want to have something published somewhere someday, and they want to start with a magazine. And I guess as an editor, what do you guys look for? I mean, what makes a good article? I mean, what are the 3 or 4 or whatever things you need to have to really make an article you think is going to be compelling and interesting and something you'd consider putting in your magazine?
Well, for us, for WSS, the first thing we're always going to say is, does it involve wargaming? That seems like a silly question to ask of an article, but when we looked around at all the magazines, we saw that a lot of articles are really just a sort of a very quick introduction to a battle or a period or whatever, with then maybe 2 paragraphs of wargaming ideas tacked on to the end. And we decided we didn't want to be like that. We want to be about wargaming, get you maybe a separate text box or a good, the first third of an article is introducing you to the battle of the era. And of course we go over that sometimes, but make it at least half should be about actually wargaming that historical event or person, scenario, theme, whatever. That's what it's about. So that's what the article is going to have to contain. Obviously, it's going to help if you can write well, because it's something you can learn, definitely, but some people have more talent for it than others. It's just a given. Can you enthuse people? Can you the best test really is, you get a proposal and you read it and you go, ooh, I want to do that. Does it grab the interest? Does it have original ideas? The standard wargaming article is, okay, this battle, okay, here's an order of battle for this rule set, klar, done. But an original article might be, okay, this is this battle and it has this special feature, so we're going to adapt this rule a little bit, or we're going to introduce something different this time so that it's more relevant to this scenario. Say, the rule set doesn't really it normally expects everybody to have all their toys on the table when you begin, but for this scenario, you just prescribe that a third of that army will come in on the flank on a roll of 3 up on 4th or 3rd turn. Something, I'm just making it up as I go along. It's probably not the best example, but something extra than the standard stuff. And of course, the 4th one is, if you can say, I've got good pictures of a good collection, make our life easier. Yeah, sure, that's going to help.
Do you guys take submissions, or is most stuff done in-house, or how do you guys do that?
Not just us. Every wargaming magazine editor is going to be happy if you send them an email and say, I have a good idea.
Oh, really?
Because, everybody, it's the standard answer really on, if there's on any forum online, there's complaints about the latest issue of this or that magazine, the standard answer is propose an article. Don't sit on the sidelines, but take part. Sure, absolutely.
Right. Now, well, I'm going to put you on the spot then. So, someone's listening to this right now? They're like, I could write a great article for you guys. How would they submit it to you? Is it just go to their website? Is there a link right there, or?
No, it's simple as send an email to editor@wssmagazine.com.
There you go. If you always dream to be an article writer, give it a shot. Why not? Yeah. So I wanted to, and I kind of bouncing around here a little bit, but I wanted to ask, it sounds like it's based heavily on photos. How do you guys make the call on a particular theme? You pick them 6 months in advance. Is it, are you walking around and you happen to see someone who has or find someone who has a great collection, like that would make a great theme, or does the theme come first, or both, or how do you guys kind of settle in on that theme's going to be good enough for an entire dedicated issue for it?
There's 2 things. First of all, there's sort of you want to roughly go through all eras in a year. 6 issues, so you want to make sure that, at least once you have something modern, you have something Napoleonic, something ancient, something medieval, something different because that's what we like to do, like we did recently with Spies.
Right. That was
last
cool, by
year
the way.
Gangsters.
Yeah.
So that's very broad categories throughout the year, and then we just it's a risk we take, but we just pick a theme that we think would be different or hasn't been done too much, that we think we can do something with, and we just it's almost you pick a theme, see what happens.
All right, cool. So you just charge in there and make it work. That's neat.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this: I have to ask you two things because I think it's fascinating. I love the fact that you guys are carried by Barnes and Noble and major retailers. How hard is that to make happen? I mean, was it something? Did they approach you? Did you go knocking on a lot of doors to get in there, or how did that whole thing work out?
No, they do not approach you. That's definitely one. Basically, how it works is that you always have to go through a distributor, and you knock on their doors and you say, I've got this magazine and I think it's really cool and it's going to sell very well, and these are the competitors, and then you probably have to send in some samples and they'll look at it. And the distributor in the end is going to say, okay, I think I can make this work or not. The reason you tell them about the competitors is because they can pull up sales data of that competitor and go, okay, how does it compare? I think that might work or not. And then they try to pitch it to the buyers of the big magazine bookstores and magazine stores. And it's just, they'll say yes or no.
Right.
Basically, what it comes down to, you're subject to their whims.
Well, congratulations on getting pulled in. That's awesome. That's great. So
the hard is that it's sale and return. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
So they'll just tell you. Okay, how this works is that they'll tell you, just before you go to print, you tell them months ahead. Okay, I'm gonna, I need to know my print order on February 23rd, on April 23rd, and then on April 22nd, you get an email that says, okay, print order for North America, so many thousand copies, boom. And your deal, your contract with the distributor says you are going to deliver those at a certain address at a certain specified time, and then they'll pick it up and put it in stores. And for North America, it takes forever, something like 8 to 9 months before you actually hear how well it sold.
Oh, wow.
8. And everything that didn't sell is trash can.
Ugh.
No.
That's how the magazine industry works, and it's kind of stupid, but yeah, that's.
Oh wow! So that's how they keep their shelves not filling up. They throw away the stuff that doesn't sell.
Yeah, it's it basically at the end of the month publication cycle, the unsold issues go back to the warehouse or the wholesaler, and they register them, and sometimes they there's various methods of making them unsellable. Like they tear off the cover or whatever, and then they're dumped or they're shredded. Wow. Hopefully, go into recycling.
Wow.
Oof.
That's a sad ending for a magazine.
That sort of stinks. You put all that time and effort in.
Yep. And the only thing you can do is hope that you have a distributor, and luckily it's in their interest too, who is is on the ball and goes, okay, that store, hopefully store level, and that store hasn't sold. We send them the last 3 issues. We sent them 5 copies of X magazine. They've sold those over the last 6 months. They've sold 2 every time. We're going to send them 4 or 3 in the future. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't always work because some stores or some chains have minimum numbers that you have to put in the shop, or they won't accept it at all. That's the hard part about being in a major retail chain. and it doesn't matter where you are. And actually, it helped. It's a bit harder even in the U.S. because the country is kind of big, and there's a lot of distributors and people in the retail chain. That makes it even harder to get that really detailed information, so you can raise your efficiencies as much as possible.
So, speaking of all that, and that's really fascinating, actually. And I'm always curious how that all kind of works and comes together. And thinking about all that how that flow works and how delivering magazines a certain spot and managing inventory and all those things that have to happen to make all this work, it kind of leads me into before we run out of time, I really wanted to touch base with you on this topic and see what your thoughts are on it. How are you guys handling the rise of digital distribution? With the in the last 3 years, you've really seen an explosion in e-readers and tablets and all these other ways to really just different ways to read material. Have you kind of noticed it impacting how people consume your products? And B, how do you deal with that, or how do you address that whole challenge?
We've decided, I think a year ago, we started selling PDF subscriptions of all the magazines. We got that question pretty much from day one that I started with Ancient Warfare. There were people who said, for various reasons, I would like a digital issue because of my environmental convictions, or because my local postal service is too crappy and I don't want to have to call you every other month to send me a new issue, or because it's cheaper. And last year we just decided to bite the bullet and just make them available. And so far that's worked pretty well. There have been people who said, I prefer the digital version. I'll just switch my subscription. Okay with that. Are
you finding that is picking up? Is that sort of becoming a more popular way?
That's where that grows faster, probably because it's perfect for the time. It's instant reward if you tell it to start with the latest issue, and it's much cheaper. And simply because we can make much cheaper, because shipping magazines across the world is a very expensive business.
Right.
So if you cut that out, we don't have to pay for it, and you don't. So it's.
Well, you'd mentioned right at the beginning of the segment that one of your biggest expenses is printing costs. So if that gets reduced, obviously that helps out a lot, right? So
it helps printing costs and it helps shipping costs. So if you can cut those and
you're saving trees, so it's win-win-win, right?
Yeah, it is, and we're working on an app too.
Yeah. I was going to ask you. So how have you looked into what is it? What's the iTunes option, iBooks or whatever they do, or those the publishing options? Are you going there now?
There's a publishing, well, we're just working on our own app, and we may try and get that into their, what is it?
Their bookshelf or newsstand or something? Yeah, they have some little thing.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly. I think you have to.
Yeah.
I was at the, actually came back from the Frankfurt Book Fair today. It was an extra reason to be a bit tired. And publishers are always very much with the times. They say, digital is the next big thing. That was a joke.
I got it. I'm with you.
So I don't see it as a problem. I think the thing is that for the short term, a lot of people just like having their magazines digitally on their iPad. In the long term, of course, you're going to have to, as a publisher, want to think about how can we really use all the extra possibilities that provides us in making the magazine interesting and attractive. I mean, if you look at digital comics, for instance, it's kind of interesting that they've introduced a way that you can go from panel to panel and zooms in, zooms out, and things like that. That's a very simple thing, but you could undoubtedly make your magazine so that you could zoom into your photos or the pop up or.
Right, you definitely have a more rich experience and really see more.
On the other hand, of course, that is extra work, extra cost involved. So, but it's definitely something we want to consider.
Oh, cool! That is going to be neat. I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys do that. But I love the fact you have PDFs already, and it's a great way to consume your products and check out all the great images and everything. So thank you, Jasper, for taking so much time to join us here at Dunks tonight. Craig, any more last questions here before we let Jasper go to sleep?
Jasper's literally how many minutes before you're asleep?
Minutes?
Yeah. When we say goodbye, literally how many minutes before your head hits a pillow? You do use pillows in the Netherlands, do you not?
We do. Not wooden blocks. Too hard. It's 7 steps, I think.
7 steps.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. And collapse. Well, thank you very much for staying up so late. This is kind of crazy for you to do that, and we really, really appreciate you. I think you are the farthest away person, well, not including Australia, who actually managed to, like, he was talking to us at 10 o'clock in the morning.
The next day. He talks to us from the future. So it's
exactly. So I think you're up the latest, I think.
Woohoo! I win.
There you go. You win something.
You ought to win something. That's true. And again, in the best of all possible worlds, there'd be a prize.
There would be. So thanks again, Jasper, and we look forward to chatting with you on the main show a little while.
Yeah, thanks, Jasper.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.
Craig, give me some levels there.
You want some levels, Russ? I got your levels right here. I am so full of levels, it's not even funny. You want me to shut up? I'll shut up right now. I'm going to shut up. And this is me shutting up. I'm going to shut up right as soon as you tell me to shut up. I'm just going to keep shutting up. This is me shutting up. Do you mind if I shut up? I'm going to just keep
shut
shutting
up right now.
until you...
Jasper, can you give me
levels? You want levels? I don't know. Here's some level.
Good.
Here's some level, and maybe if my next door neighbor wakes up, he's going to see there's lights on here and wonder what's going on.
Right. Call the police.